The Jaylen Brown disrespect is out of hand. Seeing people say that Jaylen Brown should get traded and to be basing conclusions like that after one bad season is beyond insane. And look, Jaylen Brown versus the Cavs yesterday. 30 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He went 12 from 20 from the field, 60 field goal percent. Why aren't the haters talking? I'm confused. And against the Pistons, 41 points. Against the Pelicans, 15.7 rebounds, 4 assists. Not the most outlandish thing in the world, but they still blew out the Pelicans. And the only bad game he's had this season was against the Knicks. And even that game, he had 23 points. So what am I saying? Stop disrespecting Brown. Just because the Celtics have no playmakers, so sometimes Jaylen Brown is forced to take that role and he's naturally bad at it, it doesn't mean it's his fault, because that's not his job. It's not his job to be a playmaker. The Celtics have no playmakers. So sometimes, yes, Jaylen Brown, who has the ball a lot of the time, is going to be forced to play make a little without Tatum. And you might see some of those turnovers. Now look, I'm not trying to glaze Brown either. Sometimes there is some really bad turnovers where it's like, okay, just pass that dude. Sometimes where he's just out of control and throws it straight towards the defender. But for the most part, Brown has been doing his job. He's been a good scorer. And look, I know he had a bad season last year, but we don't trade a player who won a 2024 Finals MVP after one bad season. And even last season, he averaged 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. This season, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. And he's also doing that on 50% from the field. So he's shown that he's a consistent scorer. Which means if the Celtics do lose Jaylen Brown, they're gonna lose leadership, they're gonna lose that defensive stability, and they're gonna lose a veteran. For what? A couple young players? A couple draft picks? And then when the Celtics get a good pick the next year and run it back with Tatum, Tatum's gonna be playing with a basically rebuilding squad? What did they want him to do? And look, if the Celtics do have to go over the salary cap to have Brown, so be it. Because you know what? Every winning team is going to have to take risk. And for the Celtics, it'll probably be the salary cap. Now look, if the Celtics do trade Brown for another All-Star, maybe it's like Pascal Siakam and a few draft picks or a few role players, or some other All-Star, would they really help us win a championship? When compared to Brown? Look, we've already seen Jaylen Brown prove himself in a playoff series, prove himself on a championship run. I mean, for Lord's sakes, he won Finals MVP over Jason Tatum. That shit is not easy. So Brown has proved that he can be that elite second option when played in his role. Also, the chemistry. Brown has perfect chemistry with Christian and White. They've been playing with each other for over 3 years. Tatum and Brown, they've been buddies for 8 years. You think if the Celtics just trade Jaylen Brown, Tatum's not gonna care? Tatum's just gonna wave his hand and say, oh, whatever, I don't want Brown anyway. We gotta be for real here. Of course he's gonna feel some type of way. Especially if it's an ignorant trade too. Look, I know the business side of the NBA can be brutal, but if we're being realistic, Jaylen Brown has been on the team for over 8 years. I'm talking since the IT days, since the championship days, and now we're here, rebuilding. You don't just trade Jaylen Brown just because of the salary cap and he's had one down year. Let's be realistic. This dude is a fucking veteran on his team who has a Finals MVP and has proved that he's an elite second option. You paid that man. Plus, we're just talking about Jaylen Brown getting traded. Given the rarity of elite two-way wings who can score efficiently and defend these days, it's hard to replace that kind of value, especially with equivalent draft picks or role players. Now look, I want to talk about the salary cap, because that's where most people just turn their heads on keeping Jaylen Brown. Look, Jaylen Brown, 2 years ago, signed a Supermax extension. And while that's a large number, there's 2 keys that migrate the bad contract narrative. First of all, he's producing all-star level results, so the cost is justified, rather than just being a pure burden. Mind you, Jaylen Brown just dropped 30 points against the Cavs and 41 against the Pistons. Now look, max contracts by definition are tied to the cap. In this new modern age, as the cap rises, what was once massive, like Jaylen Brown's contract, becomes more manageable. I mean, imagine when Jokic's contract expires. How much are the Nuggets gonna pay him? We're gonna start to see role players getting paid more and more and more, to the point where we're gonna look at Jaylen Brown's contract and say, yeah, that was pretty solid from Brad Stevens. That was a pretty good contract. Especially when the Celtics win the 2027 championship against the Spurs. And look, I'm not gonna act like Brown's contract isn't an issue at all. Of course, the Celtics are probably gonna have to let go of some good role players. But who's better, a role player or an all-star? And if the Celtics do trade Jaylen Brown, they're not gonna get back equivalent value, especially if they're trying to contend the next year. Because Brown is a top tier player. Look, he's about top 30 in the NBA. Getting a return that matches his on-court value is difficult for any GM. The Celtics would much rather risk either overpaying in return than rather undervaluing him and losing him in free agency or in the offseason. Now look, I'm about to get a little nerdy here. Given Jaylen Brown's contract, moving him doesn't necessarily free up dramatic cap space in the short term relative to the value lost. Unless the return is structured very clearly, some trade scenarios suggest only modest cap relief from moving him. So basically, getting rid of Jaylen Brown in his contract, it isn't gonna free up as much cap space as people think. But that's just my thoughts, man. I wanna hear what y'all think. Should the Celtics trade Jaylen Brown or not? If y'all like my video, leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications. I'm not SGA, but call me Mr. Consistent. And until later, I'll see y'all on Mars. Peace.
You telling me you falling out of love with me. Hope you can find someone to love you better than I did. Taking our memories on love and treating it like nothing. Taking our memories on love and treating it like gossip. It's my love for my grandmother make me gentle when I care for you. Tell me you're falling out of love, she's breaking my heart in two.